The jungle should have been silent. At dawn, the canopy usually whispered in breezes and birdsong, not cracked with panic. But this morning, deep in the Indian wilderness, screams tore through the trees, human screams, raw and terrified. AJ's heart hammered in his chest as he sprinted through the underbrush, barefoot and bleeding. He wasn't a poacher. He wasn't a tourist. He was just a forest guide trying to find his way back after being separated from his group. And now, a tiger, a full-grown Bengal tiger, was stalking him, its massive striped form weaving silently between the trees just 50 feet behind. His breath came in ragged bursts. He didn't dare turn around. He felt it more than saw it, the heavy presence, the predator's gaze. And then it happened. A low growl rolled through the jungle like thunder. The tiger stepped fully into the trail behind him, amber eyes locked on him, its body coiled like a spring. AJ froze. The dense jungle pulsed with tension. His legs refused to move. He had no weapon, no tree to climb, no chance. This was the end. Then, the unthinkable happened. The tiger didn't lunge. It didn't roar. It collapsed. AJ blinked. What? The apex predator, the nightmare of every villager for miles, slumped onto its side like a dying house cat. Its massive chest heaved. Saliva foamed from its jaws. Its eyes, once glowing with menace, were wide and glassy. And then AJ saw them. The cubs. Two tiny, wide-eyed tiger cubs emerged shakily from the bush behind the adult. No bigger than puppies, their legs trembled with every step. One let out a soft mewl and nudged the fallen tiger, its mother. AJ's breath caught in his throat. The tiger hadn't been hunting him. She'd been leading him. Straight to her dying body. Straight to her helpless babies. AJ stood frozen as the realization hit him like a lightning strike. The mother tiger, an animal feared by all, hadn't shown aggression. She had used the last of her strength to bring a human here. She wanted him to see this. She wanted help. But help? From a human? AJ had heard the stories, of course. Old village tales of animals seeking humans in desperation. But this was real. He inched forward cautiously. The mother's breathing was shallow. Her side rose and fell with visible effort, every breath rattling like dry leaves. The cubs looked up at him, one stumbling and falling over its own paw. The other stayed close to its mother, mewling softly. Their eyes held no fear, just confusion. AJ's guide instincts kicked in. He scanned the mother quickly. Wounds. Deep ones. Old bullet scars? No, too fresh. Her hind leg was twisted at an unnatural angle. Her belly was sunken. And then he saw it, beneath her fur, buried in the muscle, a snare wire. Rusted. Cutting deep. Poachers, AJ muttered under his breath, fury igniting in his veins. The mother tiger had been caught in a trap. She had somehow broken free, but not without devastating injuries. And still she'd survived, long enough to bring her babies to safety. But she wouldn't last the day. And now so much more was at stake. Because without her, these cubs would die. AJ reached for his radio. Nothing. Dead. No signal this deep. His phone? Crushed in the fall the night before. There was no one coming. No backup. Just him. And a dying tiger. And two terrified cubs. Suddenly, movement in the bush startled him. He spun around, eyes wide. More rustling. Then silence. Poachers? Another predator? No, it was one of the cubs, wandering off, limping toward the dense brush. AJ rushed forward and scooped the tiny creature into his arms. It let out a high-pitched squeal but didn't fight. Its fur was warm, soft, and trembling. He carried it back and knelt beside the mother. Her massive golden eyes met his. And for a moment, there was understanding. She knew he wasn't going to hurt them. AJ did the only thing he could. He whispered, "I'll try. I swear I'll try." But deep down he knew, without medical help, the mother wouldn't make it. And the cubs, they wouldn't survive alone. He scanned the forest for landmarks. The rocky outcrop to the north. The broken banyan tree to the east. If he could reach the ranger station, at least 15 kilometers away, he could bring help. But could he leave them? What if poachers returned? What if another predator came? And what if... Another sound. Snap. A branch broke behind him. This time it wasn't a cub. AJ stood slowly, pulse spiking. Then he saw them. Two men. Dark clothes. Rifles. One of them squatted near a bush, inspecting a metal snare trap. Poachers. AJ ducked low, heart in his throat. They were no more than 50 yards away. One turned toward the tiger's location. "Oh no," AJ whispered. They were heading straight toward them. The dying mother. The cubs. And now, AJ himself. He had no weapon, no time, no backup, and they were almost here. Was he about to die for a tiger who trusted him? He clutched the cub to his chest, heart pounding, and crawled toward the other, ready to make a desperate decision. But time had just run out. Ajay flattened himself to the forest floor, the cub pressed against his chest, its tiny heart beating wildly against his own. He could feel the pulse of fear, both his and the animals, as the sounds of boots crunching under dry leaves grew louder. The poachers were close. Too close. Tracks here, one of them grunted, his voice gravelly and confident. Blood too. She's near. Ajay dared a glance from behind the trunk of a gnarled tree. The mother tiger lay only 10 paces away from him, her massive body heaving in pain, barely conscious. The second cub huddled beside her, wide-eyed, unaware of the men approaching with rifles. They were heading straight toward her. His mind raced. He had seconds, maybe less. He had no weapon, no radio, no allies, just instinct. Ajay looked down at the cub in his arms and whispered, "Stay quiet, please." He gently set it inside the hollow between two massive roots, draped a few fronds over it, and turned toward the threat. He had to buy time. He had to lead them away. Adrenaline drowned out his fear as he bolted upright, grabbed a branch, and hurled it into the brush away from the tigress. Snap. Crackle. The sound echoed like a deer crashing through the undergrowth. "Over there," one of the poachers shouted, spinning and raising his rifle. Ajay didn't wait. He sprinted in the opposite direction, crashing through the brush deliberately, loudly, the way no forest creature would. He let them hear him, let them see him. "Hui," he shouted over his shoulder. "You want something to shoot? Come get me." A gunshot rang out, crack, splintering a tree trunk inches from his head. Ajay dove behind a bush, panting, heart slamming against his ribs. He hadn't been shot, but it was too close. Too damn close. "I saw him," a poacher yelled. "He's headed north." "Forget the tiger?" "No. He's a guide. He'll lead us to more. We take him, we take the park." Ajay swallowed hard. They were hunting him now. And he'd led them away, but only barely. The tigress and her cubs were unprotected. If the poachers circled back? No. Not if he could help it. He kept running. For nearly half an hour, Ajay zigzagged through the thick jungle, ducking behind trees and scrambling over roots, trying to lose them. But the men weren't amateurs. They were trained, coordinated, and relentless. His lungs burned. Sweat poured from every inch of him. The sharp branches tore at his arms and face, blood streaking down his temple. Then, a slope. He tripped, tumbled, hit the forest floor hard. Crack. His ankle twisted beneath him. Pain shot through his leg like lightning. He stifled a scream and rolled behind a moss-covered log. He listened, trying to hear over the ringing in his ears. Silence. Maybe he'd lost them. Or maybe they were circling him like wolves. Ajay gritted his teeth and reached into his belt, pulling the only thing he had left, a small flare stick. Part of the emergency kit he'd kept stashed in his bag before he'd gotten separated from his group. He held it tightly. It could alert help. If he made it to open ground. If there was someone nearby. But it was a last resort. "I can't die here. Not yet. Not until I know the cubs are safe." He forced himself up, leaning on a stick to hobble, and began limping back toward the tigress. Every step was agony, but his mind blocked it out. He had a mission now. Not just survival. Redemption. When Ajay finally reached the clearing again, he expected the worst. But what he found shattered him. The mother tiger was barely breathing. Blood had pooled beneath her side. Her head was lifted slightly, her golden eyes scanning the tree line, waiting. The cub he'd hidden peeked from the roots with a soft squeal. The other cub, still curled against her. And beside her, a shadow. One of the poachers. Ajay dropped low, fury and fear colliding inside him. The man had his back to Ajay, squatting near the tiger with a tranquilizer rifle. Not to help her, to take her alive. For sale. For trophies. Or worse. Ajay's hand curled into a fist around a rock. But just as he stepped forward, he hesitated. Because in that moment, the tigress looked up. Right at him. Her lips parted in a soft growl. Not at the poacher. At Ajay. The warning was clear. Don't. If he attacked the man, the tiger would react. Even dying, even weak, her instincts might kill Ajay before she recognized him. He needed a new plan. Quietly, he reached into his pocket and pulled out the flare stick. He whispered a prayer. Then flick. The flare ignited with a blinding red burst and a screeching hiss. The poacher shouted, falling back as the flare burst into life in Ajay's hand. The tiger snarled. The cubs shrieked. Birds exploded from the trees in a frenzy of wings. The man scrambled, fumbling with his rifle. Ajay held the flare high, limping into the clearing like a wild man, shouting at the top of his lungs, "Back away! Forest Service! Back off!" It was a bluff. But it worked. The poacher panicked. The flare, the voice, the chaos, it spooked him. He ran. Ajay dropped the flare and fell to his knees beside the tigress. Her breathing was shallow. Her eyes fluttered. "I'm here," he whispered, voice cracking. "I'm sorry I left." The second cub crept over and nuzzled her jaw. Ajay reached into the pouch at his waist, pulled out his last water bottle. He soaked part of his shirt and gently dabbed it across her forehead, trying to cool her fevered body. "She's going to die," he muttered. "Not if I can help it." That's when he heard the sound. A faint hum in the sky. Helicopter blades. Park rangers. His flare had worked. He ran, limping, stumbling, out of the clearing to the highest rock he could find and waved both arms. The chopper dipped low. Someone inside pointed. Then it descended, sending leaves and debris into a storm below. Rangers jumped out. "What's going on?" one shouted over the roar. "Tiger. Poachers. Cubs, injured. I need a vet. Now." The ranger's face went pale. "Where?" Ajay pointed back toward the tree line. "She's dying. But she saved them." The rangers sprang into action. One called for backup. Another ran to the tiger with tranquilizers and a med kit. A third covered Ajay in a blanket, checking his ankle. "She brought me here," Ajay murmured. "She wanted help." The ranger looked at him with wide eyes. "You're saying she trusted you?" Ajay just nodded. Because even now, the tigress, barely awake, turned her head to look at him, one last time. Then her eyes closed. Ajay sat in the back of the ranger jeep, his ankle wrapped in a splint, the fabric damp with jungle sweat and blood. The pain barely registered now. His eyes were fixed on the crate beside him, heavy steel with ventilation holes and streaks of blood smeared down its side. Inside, the mother tiger lay unconscious, her body barely rising and falling. Her ribs were visible even beneath her thick fur. A bullet had grazed her flank and embedded itself near her shoulder blade. The cubs had been placed in a separate crate, whimpering and scratching softly at the metal, sensing their mother's pain. The ranger beside Ajay, a veteran tracker named Arjun, said nothing. He had the quiet demeanor of someone who'd seen too many losses in the forest. And yet, even Arjun kept glancing at the mother tiger with a furrowed brow, as if willing her to stay alive. "What's her chance?" Ajay asked, voice dry. Arjun didn't look at him. "Depends how fast the vet gets here." "She saved me," Ajay whispered. "She could have killed me, but she didn't." Arjun nodded slowly. "Tigers don't forget. You protected her cubs." She knew. They hit a bump in the road, and the tigress let out a faint, pain-laced growl. One of the cubs yelped in reply. Ajay's heart broke all over again. By the time they reached the ranger outpost, dusk had fallen. Floodlights were already blazing across the clearing. Vets and forest officers swarmed the area, speaking in rapid Hindi, prepping a field surgery setup right there on the table outside. "She's losing too much blood," one of the vets barked. Ajay stood back, gripping the edge of a bench, watching them work. They lifted the tigress out of the crate with 3 pairs of arms and placed her gently on the table. Her massive body sprawled out like a fallen queen. Her chest was rising and falling, too slow. One of the cubs let out a distressed cry from the cage. Ajay couldn't take it anymore. He stepped toward the vet, ignoring the pain in his leg. "Please, save her." The vet paused. "We'll try. But if she doesn't make it, we'll need to consider options for the cubs." "Like what?" Ajay's voice was sharp. "Sanctuary. Permanent captivity. They can't survive alone." Ajay's fists clenched. No, that wasn't how this story was supposed to end. The next hour felt like a war zone. The field lit up with blinding white lights. Gauze, instruments, blood-stained towels, everywhere. The team moved like a symphony, but every time they suctioned more blood or reached for another tool, Ajay's stomach dropped further. He paced. "Saturday. Poked his head into the cub's cage and whispered softly to them. "She's fighting," he murmured. "She's fighting for you." One of the cubs reached a paw through the bars, curling it gently around Ajay's finger. He nearly broke. Then a sound. Sure. Final. The monitors beeped erratically. Voices rose. No, she's crashing. Epinephrine. Now." Ajay felt his knees give. He slumped against the wall of the outpost and closed his eyes. Please, don't let her die. The cubs began crying, louder now. Ajay could barely hear over the pounding in his ears. Then silence. The whole world held its breath. One of the vets looked up, slowly, eyes wide. She's stabilizing. AJ's head jerked up. Another vet leaned over the table and whispered, she's going to make it. The breath Ajay had been holding escaped in a shuddering gasp. He stumbled forward, grabbing the edge of the vet tent, his eyes filling with tears. She's going to live? She'll need weeks of recovery, the vet said, but yes, she's a fighter. Behind him, the cubs settled as if they'd known all along. Later that night, after the tigress was moved to the recovery pen, Ajay found himself sitting by her enclosure under a dim lantern light. She lay under blankets, her sides wrapped in gauze, her breathing slow but steady. The cubs had been released into the pen with her, and they now curled against her like two furry commas. Ajay leaned on the fence, exhaustion settling in his bones. Arjun approached with 2 steaming cups of chai. Here. You look like death. Ajay took the cup gratefully. I feel worse. Still, Arjun said, you did something incredible. Most people would have run. Or frozen. You stayed. You saved them. Ajay stared into the pen. I owed them that. Arjun sat beside him. You know we tracked down the poachers. AJ's head snapped toward him. You did. Yeah. The one you scared off got picked up 3 miles out. The others? We found their base. And, Arjun hesitated. There was more. Ajay leaned in. More? We found documents. Maps. Schedules. They weren't just random poachers. They were part of a larger network. Traffickers. And their main target. Arjun pulled a folder from under his arm and handed it to Ajay. Ajay opened it and froze. There, in black and white, was a photo of the mother tiger. And beneath it, a note. High-value female. Last of the bloodline. Priority target. Ajay looked up, horror dawning on his face. They were targeting her specifically? Arjun nodded grimly. She's the last known female of a rare genetic lineage. Her DNA's unique. They wanted her for breeding, illegal zoos, underground trade. Ajay looked back at the tiger, sleeping peacefully beside her cubs. If they had gotten her, they'd have wiped out the bloodline. Forever. A terrible silence settled between them. Then Arjun placed a hand on his shoulder. Because of you she's alive. Her cubs are alive. And maybe there's still hope for her kind. Over the next few days, word of the rescue spread. News outlets picked up the story. Wildlife groups started campaigns. Ajay, who had always worked behind the scenes, suddenly found himself thrust into the spotlight. Reporters called him the Tiger Whisperer. The footage of him lighting the flare, bloodied, limping, protecting the mother tiger, went viral. But Ajay didn't care about fame. All he wanted was to make sure she lived. And every day he sat beside the pen, reading softly from old forest journals, letting his voice drift through the mesh as the tigress healed. At first she barely opened her eyes. Then she lifted her head. Then she stood. And one morning, when Ajay stepped up to the enclosure with his usual thermos of tea, she walked to the edge, slowly, majestically, and looked at him. They held that gaze for a long time. And Ajay knew without a doubt. She remembered. But just when things felt safe, when the story seemed to find its happy ending, a new storm loomed on the horizon. Arjun ran into camp, a satellite phone in hand. Ajay, you need to hear this. What is it? They found another poacher. Not from the same group. A different outfit. And this one had your name. Ajay blinked. My name. They were tracking you, Ajay. Why? Arjun handed over a grainy surveillance photo. It showed Ajay in the jungle holding the flare. The tiger in the background. Ajay's breath caught. They're not just hunting tigers anymore, Arjun said grimly. They're hunting you. Ajay stared at the photo in his hand, the grainy image of him holding the flare burned into his vision. Behind him in the frame, the tigress stood tall in the jungle's smoke, wild, wounded, and fierce. A symbol of defiance. Of survival. But Arjun's words echoed louder than anything. They're not just hunting tigers anymore. They're hunting you. Ajay lowered the photo slowly. What? I'm not a threat. I'm just a... No, Arjun interrupted. You are a threat. You stopped one of their highest value extractions. You exposed their network. The footage went global. You turned a spotlight on people who were comfortable working in the dark. Ajay's throat went dry. The cubs were sleeping again in the pen. The mother stirred as if sensing something in the air. Her tail flicked. Her ears perked. She could smell it too. Danger was close. That night, the forest was too quiet. No insects hummed. No birds called. The leaves barely moved. Ajay sat in the ranger station packing supplies, his camera, his notes, a power bank, a flashlight. Arjun and a few guards had reinforced the perimeter, but everyone could feel it in their bones. Someone was coming. The call had come from a ranger post 10 miles south. One of their drones had picked up infrared movement heading their way. Armed figures in camouflage, moving through the jungle with silencers and gear too advanced for typical poachers. Ajay checked his sat phone. No signal. The power grid had flickered earlier. He zipped his pack and slung it over his shoulder, just as Arjun burst through the door. They're almost here. Do we run? Ajay asked. No, Arjun said. We stand. But we've got to get her out of here. Ajay froze. You want to move the tiger? She's strong enough now. And we've got a transport crate ready in the back. We move her and the cubs deep into the protected zone, off-grid. There's a remote area near the old sanctuary. No roads. No signals. No one but the jungle. Ajay nodded slowly. Let's do it. They worked fast, every second feeling stolen. The mother tiger, though groggy, stood when the crate was wheeled in. She growled but didn't resist when her cubs were gently guided in first. Maybe she knew. Maybe some primal part of her understood that this wasn't a cage, it was hope. As they locked the crate and secured it to the modified 4x4, gunshots cracked in the distance. Move! Arjun shouted. Ajay jumped into the passenger seat as two rangers climbed in back, weapons raised. The engine roared to life. They tore down the gravel path into the jungle, headlights cutting through darkness, branches slapping against the windshield. Behind them, the ranger station erupted in flames. 4 hours they drove, through mud and rock, dodging fallen trees and fording shallow rivers. The deeper they went, the less they spoke. Until finally, just before dawn, they reached the sanctuary ruins. It had once been a protected wildlife corridor, fenced, monitored, manned. But over the years, bureaucracy and politics had starved it of funding. Now it was overgrown and forgotten. Which made it perfect. They unloaded the crate just as the first hints of orange painted the horizon. Arjun motioned to Ajay. Let her out. Ajay stepped forward, trembling. He unlaced the lock, took a breath, and opened the gate. The cubs scampered out first, blinking at the morning light, sniffing the air. Then, slowly, majestically, the mother tiger stepped out. She looked at Ajay. For a moment, the world stood still. He bowed his head. Go, he whispered. Be free. And she turned, silent as a shadow, and disappeared into the tall grass, her cubs bounding after her. 3 days later, Ajay sat in a news studio in Delhi, recovering from exhaustion and healing from the bullet graze. His story had shaken the world. Footage of the tiger's release played on loop. Conservationists praised the operation. Wildlife donations surged. But Ajay kept thinking of the tiger's final glance. It hadn't been fear. It had been recognition. Weeks passed. The poaching ring's leaders were captured, thanks to the documents Ajay had recovered. Interpol got involved. Sanctuaries around the globe adopted new protocols based on what he had uncovered. But Ajay didn't want medals or interviews. He returned to the jungle. Not to control it, but to protect it. He volunteered full-time with the forest department. Trained new rangers. Built new camera traps. He even helped design new anti-poaching drones. One morning, while checking a motion sensor camera deep in the forest, he stopped cold. There in the high grass stood a tigress. Not just any tigress. Her eyes locked with his. Behind her, the two cubs peeked out. They were growing fast, strong, wild. Ajay smiled. She didn't run, didn't growl. She simply stood, watching, acknowledging. Then, graceful as a whisper, she vanished back into the jungle. Back at camp, Ajay uploaded the photo the camera had captured. The tigress framed by golden light, her cubs behind her, proud and unafraid. He added a caption. Still fighting. Still free. For every voice that can't speak, we must roar louder. Then he pressed upload. The image spread like wildfire. And under it, millions of people began to comment. This made me cry. I'll never look at tigers the same way again. She's alive. And her cubs. Because one man refused to look away. Subscribed. The world needs more stories like this. In the months that followed, the sanctuary was refunded and restored. More forest patrols were added. Drones patrolled nightly. Poachers were warned, this jungle has guardians now. And in the heart of that wild place, a tigress raised her cubs, Fierce, free, and unbroken. Because someone chose not to run. Because someone lit a flare instead. Would you have done the same? If this story moved you, don't let it end here. Like, comment, and subscribe for more heart-racing animal rescues. Share this story if you believe every life, human or animal, deserves a fighting chance. Join Lion's Shield and help us protect the wild.